Well, guys, we got ourselves a very important story that I want to talk about today. And the reason why I even decided to make a video on this is because I saw this article a few days ago and I read it and I was just like, you know what? This doesn't even surprise me. Thankfully, even though I'm not like dead broke, thank God, I'm also not in a financial situation where I'm just completely separated or like tone deaf to like the reality of the average American. I know that very well because I have family members that are going through this. I have friends that are going through this. Depression. Depression is a very serious thing in our country. It's only gotten worse. When I look at the country as a whole, just me being a regular everyday citizen who's not completely like separated from actual reality of what regular Americans go through, most people, most average Americans are broke, lonely, and unhappy, depressed. And that has led to this article right here out of the Associated Press. It says right here that U.S. suicides have hit an all time high. We go ahead and read more of the article. I don't know what this is. Okay, I guess that was like a paywall or ad or something. So it says right here about 49,500 people. We'll just round that up. Basically, 50,000 people took their own lives last year in the United States. This is the highest number ever, according to new government data. So as of right now, and it's crazy too, because you wouldn't expect this, right? Because you can argue that life is tremendously better than it was before, right? You would think so, right? Because back then, obviously racism was a lot worse. You had slavery. You had different people being enslaved. You had World War II. You had the Holocaust. You had different genocides that were taking place. The world was a lot more barbaric. People went to jail for like the pettiest crimes or got murdered or killed for the pettiest things. You could literally challenge somebody to a duel to the death back then, and you could literally kill somebody if they accept your duel. Like, just all kinds of things. The world was just so primitive and just so barbaric and so much worse back then. It's almost hard to fathom that today, with all the technology and all the entertainment, and everybody's got iPhones and Jordans and people got cars and they can go anywhere they want. They could do anything they want to do, at least if you're living in America. So then it begs the question, why is it that we have the highest number of suicides ever recorded in U.S. history? I'll tell you why. Even though, some people might argue that previous generations had it way worse than we did. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Let me explain it. Did certain generations have it way worse? Yes, they did. But they also didn't have access to being able to take their lives the way that we do now. Most of the suicides that are happening today are guns. There's more guns around than ever before. People did not have the same access to firearms that they do now. So that's already one of the reasons. The other reason is, even though our grandparents' generation had it much worse, they really did. I've talked to my grandfather about the civil rights movement and what life was like in the 1940s for black people. Even though it was worse, financially, it wasn't. Collectively, financially, when my grandfather went to college, tuition was like $2,000 a year. Not even a semester, like a year, something crazy like that. Most of that generation was able to, they made enough money where they could buy a home. So they were able to buy a home, build wealth that way, raise a family, live the American dream, the white picket fence with a decent job, with a nice family and the dog, essentially, right? People cannot do that today. And the reason why I wanted to speak on this is because I really understand the reality of why people are doing this, because I see it every day. I see it every day with some of my friends, family, people that I went to school with. In my personal opinion, I say this all the time. By the way, most of the people that are committing suicide is men. Now, don't get me wrong. Women are committing suicide too. But according to this article, men are committing suicide at 4 times the rate of women. Here's the reason why. There are 2 reasons. A wise man once said there are 2 reasons why men commit suicide. It's either money or women. And in my personal opinion, at least in the United States, the main reason why people commit suicide is financial. Financials run everything. If you don't have money, you're going to live a very miserable and hard life. It goes even beyond just not being able to pay your bills. You almost feel lifeless. You feel dehumanized. You feel purposeless. You feel like you're not living a life of purpose. You're working a job that you hate, that you can't stand. You hate your life. You know, everything else in your life tends to not go very well when you're broke. You know, like it just, not having money is the worst thing in the world. And unfortunately, we live in a society where our society is extremely cruel to people who don't have money. Our society is extremely unfair to people who don't have money. And the wealth inequality is so bad that everybody's broke. And we live in a society where more than half of the entire population is going to work until they die. They are never going to have enough money for retirement. They ain't thinking about having enough money for retirement because they know they're never going to get there. Folks are just going through the motions. They're not thinking about saving money, putting away money. They're not thinking about investing or whatever. Folks are just trying to survive. And that is why so many people are so depressed, because they're in a freaking hamster wheel. They're just going through life, going through the motions. They're not doing anything meaningful. And I can just speak for men because I'm a man. As a man, we want to feel useful. If we don't feel useful or like we're accomplishing something, or at the very least have a beautiful woman by our side, which there's a whole nother article I was reading that said that more Americans are lonely now than ever before. But anyway, if we as men don't have that, we're going to be depressed. We really are. And so, you know, I don't want to make this just a man thing, but I wanted to speak on that because I know this article is going to be ignored because, and this is just my opinion, the world does not care about men. Okay. The world has never cared about the fact that men are committing suicide at way higher rates than everybody else. Men have been committing suicide for years now, and nobody's ever talked about it until basically now with this article. And mainstream media still isn't talking about it. But I just feel like there needs to be a call to action here. Like, we really need to talk about this. We really do, because you can really measure a country's success or the quality of life or how good the country is by looking at how the life expectancy is and how many people are living versus how many people are dying. Well, in the United States of America, there are a lot of people in this country that are dying, whether it's gun violence or suicide. And it's really, really unfortunate. If we just go ahead and look at this graph right here, it shows U.S. suicides have rose steadily over the last 2 decades. I mean, they've really risen since 2000. So you can see right here, when you look from like 1970 to 2000, you know, it slowly upticked a little bit. But then when you look from 2000 to 2022, it's just like a whoosh. It just freaking, that graph went to the moon. It's just exponential growth in the number of suicides. And it's really, really sad because, unfortunately, people don't care. That's really the reality of it. And that's why people are committing suicide. They feel like they're not being listened to. You know, a lot of Americans are lonely. There was an article that I was reading about that. Like 1 in every 3 American feels lonely. Like they don't have a partner. Also, more Americans are single now than ever before. There are less Americans getting married than ever before. There's a lot more women that are single than ever before. People aren't having kids as much as they were. Like, there's a whole lot that ties into this. And the ultimate thing that I can say that points to all these reasons of why these things are happening. Why are people more lonely? Why are people getting married less? Why are people committing suicide more? Why are people not, you know, why are so many people single? It all ties to financial. It all ties to money. That is why my main channel deals with finances and money, because I realized, thankfully, I realized in my 20s at a young age that finances run everything. Your financials will determine your overall happiness. Now, I'm not one of those people that thinks that money can buy happiness, but I definitely think that finances can lead to a better quality life and can get you on the path to being happy, finding whatever that happiness could be, much better than being broke can. And I think that's the really sad part. The other part of this article says it right here. For the first time ever, the gun suicide rate among black teens surpassed the rate among white teens. Absolutely crazy. Then they talk about other things. But in 2021, suicides rose 4% according to new data. Blah blah blah. The bottom line, folks, is I just wanted to talk about this and bring a call to action because, first of all, if you're going through any sort of suicidal thoughts or have any of those sort of things, definitely get help. Definitely make sure you call the suicide hotline. I personally don't think the suicide is the way to go, but I completely get it. Like, I understand. Like, this world is so hard. It's so cruel. Living in the United States is so tough, you know, if you don't have any money. And I just wish that there was a way for us to fix that. I don't think inequality will ever be fixed, but I wish that there were more resources or just more coverage on these types of stories because, I just haven't really seen that in the mainstream media. And I think that's unfortunate because 50,000 people committing suicide should be alarming, especially in what's supposed to be the greatest country on earth. Well, how can this be the greatest country on earth if 50,000 people are committing suicide because they're lonely or they can't pay their bills or they've racked up so much debt, student loan debt, credit card debt, that they don't think that they're ever going to be able to get themselves out, or they're so broke and they're in a situation where they're trying to survive, they know that they're not going to retire. Another alarming thing, by the way, I want to see if I can find it. The biggest age group of people that were committing suicide was like 70 plus. It was like something like that. Yeah, here it is right here. 8% of that number is in people who are 65 or older, which is also very sad. So what you're seeing is you're seeing a bunch of older Americans, baby boomers essentially, who are committing suicide because they're in a situation where folks got them in a nursing home, or the younger generation doesn't want to take care of them, or they don't have enough money to survive, so they're depending on Social Security, which could be depressing. I mean, I totally get it. Like, this country treats old people like absolute shit, and it's leading them to just say, well, screw it. You guys don't care about me. My grandchildren barely see me. Nobody wants to help me. I don't have any freaking money. I might as well just end it. It's a sad situation, but that's what's going on. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I just wanted to talk about this because it's just so sad. And yeah, that's really all I got for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.